Well, it is March 22nd, 2012, and we're in New York City and sitting with Kelly McGinnis, who is the Vice President of Global Communications at Dell. Welcome. We're so glad you could spend some time with us. I'd like to just start out with you telling us a little bit about the development of your career, from your educational experiences to where you are today at Dell. What happened and how did you get where you are today?
Well, thanks for having me. How do you get there? You get there on the shoulders of some really generous sponsors and mentors and other folks. For me, I actually started out as a social worker and very committed to doing that type of work. And after a few months of doing that in East St. Louis, it was not what I anticipated, and very disappointed that it wasn't going to be sort of what I was going to do, and hightailed it off to graduate school. And really the issue for me was that getting to know the folks who had been doing it for a long time, what they taught me was that it was really work around the system. It wasn't a situation that was straightforward, and so really got committed to figuring out how do you become part of policy and changing things. And went to graduate school and quickly joined local government and had an amazing time. Loved it. The immediacy, the fact that you could see the stuff that you were working on in real time, the fact that decisions happen and they happen in your local community was very exciting. The only thing about that is that you can move, if you're relatively quick and engaged, you can move really quickly, and then you hit a ceiling really, really fast. So basically the folks who were in the positions that would be next or had been there 15, 20 years and we're going to keep doing that. And so really started to look for growth opportunities. And the experience in government gave me a lot of breadth of experience, and it was a time when public relations, particularly agencies, were really diversifying into new areas. So I'd done some labor work and had the opportunity, and a lot of policy work that's the same as communications in a lot of ways. And so went to Fleishman Hillard, having been exposed to them through a leadership program that I'd been in the past, and some very generous former journalists taught me, here's a style guide, here's the mandatories, learn all of this, and then you can come with us. And it was a time when the agency was growing exponentially, and had a very deep relationship with what was then SBC as they went through deregulation and saw all the things that it grew into. And so got a chance to work on almost every piece of the business, from employee communications to the corporate M&A team, to work with them in Europe, to go to San Antonio and be on site, just really have a breadth of experience there. And after those opportunities, really wanted to test myself and say, is it just this environment, or could I do this other places? And it was a time when the dot-com boom was bubbling, for sure. And I went back to Seattle, having gone to graduate school there, and was head of communications at a company called drugstore.com. I always say that my dot-com experience was very atypical. So while the business model reflected a lot of the things that came about with the bubble, the executives were all Microsoft employees, former Microsoft leaders. And so the experience inside that company was very consistent with the discipline and other things that I had come from. And but learned a lot, and had a lot of fun, to be honest, too. It was a time when our communication strategy was very diverse, so we had lots of privacy issues that we had to deal with in terms of dealing with people's medical information online. But our communication strategy, at least on the consumer side, was to go and get very accessible pharmacists to talk about any embarrassing topic on the news. And it was great fun. We had a great time. But as the business started to get really, really focused, it was going to be about developing insurance relationships. It got much narrower from a communications perspective. And so Fleishman called again, and I had a chance to go down to San Francisco and move to the Bay Area. And really helped to build the consumer internet practice, and worked on Netflix and Yahoo and Expedia, and got to be exposed to a lot of the really defining entrepreneurs of that first wave of the web. And it was really great because we had a level of flexibility and autonomy to really just build the business, but always with the net of incredibly smart senior leaders within a company the size and scale and with the history that Fleishman has. And so it really wasn't that risky, even though we were playing way above our game. So did that I was with Fleishman about 10 years, and time to do something different. And as often happens in our world, clients and colleagues and colleagues and clients end up being the same folks. And a former good friend and client of mine was internal at Dell, and it was at a time when Dell went through one of those experiments that happen in our industry, and they consolidated all of their marketing dollars with WPP. created a full-in integrated agency to cover all of their marketing aspects. Public relations was always a part of that, but not in the center of it. We had a breadth of time to go through that transition, to build essentially a purpose-bred team, to take advantage of the scale of that engagement with WP without the pressures that hit some of the other parts of the marketing aspects. And so we're able to build an amazing team, really folks who were hand-selected to work on the Dell business. And over time, that model didn't work, and they diversified using multiple agencies and other things. We're still working with that agency, though, and it's changed a lot over time. So I was on that for about 2.5, almost 3 years, and then with internal changes, people growing into bigger jobs and moving on to other things, had built a good, strong relationship, particularly with the chief marketing officer. And as a consultant, it always happens. At some point, they say, stop consulting and come in and see if you can deliver. And a couple of years ago, had the chance to come in and help to drive the reputation transformation that we're going for within Dell. And so that's kind of how I got there, but mostly at the hands of a lot of other people's generosity.